we're looking at from the 1960s to present day. Right now we're going to look at a few different vocabulary terms that you very well may have encountered previously in lessons that we've reviewed and in other previous social studies classes. So the first one that most likely you have used before would be culture. So I want you to think about, what do you already know about culture? What is culture? What does it mean? What kinds of components make up culture? Those kinds of things. Globalization. This is a term you very well may have heard of before. The first part of it, global, is a very kind of big hint as far as what does it mean, globalization. And then diffusion, also related. These are all related terms. Diffusion is related to culture. You may have heard the term cultural diffusion as a vocab word before. And outsourcing. Outsourcing is something that is also commonly talked about on the news, especially when they're talking about different industries and the economics of different industries over time. So I want you to think about, what kinds of things do you already know about these terms. Culture is the shared beliefs, values, the behavior, the clothes, the food, all those kinds of things that are shared of a group of people. Okay. Globalization is the development of an increasingly integrated global economy. So you're globalizing, you're going global, you're making things more global, and it's specifically talking about the global economy. So culture, you're looking at your shared beliefs, your values, your behavior, those kinds of common ways of thinking and doing things. Globalization, we're connecting the world more and more through the economy. Diffusion is where we're spreading cultural elements from one area or group of people to other areas and other groups of people. So you're diffusing, you're sending it out, you're spreading it out to different groups of people. Outsourcing is where there's contracts for work, jobs, and goods that's being done outside of a business, or often, a lot of times when we're discussing it, we're talking about it's happening outside the country by foreign workers. It might not necessarily be outside the country. In some contexts, outsourcing can be, just outside the company itself. But a lot of times when it's being discussed on the news, it's talking about outsourcing of foreign workers. Okay, so using the kinds of things that we've already learned about previously, and things that we already know about just from life. So think about, what are railroads and trains and highways and cars and telephones and planes and computers and cell phones, the internet, what do all these things have in common? What do we use these things for? Think about, what do we use these things for? Okay, so think about, what is the connection between railroads and cars and cell phones and the internet? Think about, how do we use them? What happens to cultures when they communicate with each other? So if two different cultures that have never communicated with each other, if they begin to communicate with each other, what's going to happen? What happens when you start talking with new people, when you start making new friends? How does that affect you? How do those cultures affect each other when they begin to start communicating with each other? So if modern day, since the 1960s to present day, if cultures are communicating faster with each other, which they are, then they're learning more ideas from each other faster as well. So what is this going to do? The fact that they're being able to communicate with each other faster and they're learning things from each other faster, what is that doing to our cultures? Think about, how does the speed in which ideas are being communicated, how does that affect culture? And then this is a question for you to think about. Either way, it can be defended. Is it a good thing or a bad thing for all cultures to be the same? Okay, so what do you think? It's really about defending your answer. Is it a good thing or a bad thing if all cultures are the same? So the biggest thing there is, for that question number 4, is that you explain what you mean. Okay, so you have a prediction question. Do you think the internet helps people's cultures become more similar to each other or not? So as we use the internet more and more, are cultures becoming more similar, or are cultures becoming more different as we use the internet more and more frequently? What do you think? All right, so we have an interesting kind of graph here, okay? Each dot in this circle of different dots represents a Twitter account, and the size of the dot represents how many people are following that account. So the bigger the dot, the more people are following them. The smaller dot, the fewer people are following them, okay? The closeness of the dots indicates how much those Twitter users pay attention to the same things. So they're following the same things, the same kind of articles, those kinds of stuff. If they're really close together, then they are very much looking at the same kinds of things. If they're far apart from each other, then they're not looking at the same things. Okay. And we have people who are statistically similar in their web surfing habits, so the things that you search are grouped together by color. So if you commonly search the same kinds of things on different search engines, then you're going to be colored the same. Okay, so what do you notice about where the dots are in the circle? So we have these circles here and here. What do you notice about where the dots are located? Now I think we're looking at the auto enthusiasts and the eco enthusiasts. Okay. So, question, what does it mean if two groups of dots overlapped? So, if there are multiple colors, if different colors are overlapping with each other, then what does that mean? So kind of think back. We just talked about, what does it mean if the dots are overlapping? What happens if they don't overlap? What if there's space between the dots? What does that mean? What might the eco-enthusiasts want the auto-enthusiasts to know? So think about people who care very much about the environment and ecosystems. What would the people who are very interested in the environment want people that are very interested in automobiles and cars and trucks? What would they want them to know? So what do the environmental enthusiasts want the auto enthusiasts? What kinds of things would they want the auto enthusiasts to know about? Now, looking at the both groups one here, are the audio enthusiasts going to know what the environmental enthusiasts want them to know just if they look at Twitter? So we have our auto enthusiasts, we have our eco enthusiasts. So if we look at both groups, or they're both put in the same area, think about how much overlap is there from where the audio enthusiasts were to where the eco enthusiasts were. How much overlap is there in their searching, in the things that they're looking at? How much overlap is there? Are those audio enthusiasts going to know what the eco enthusiasts want them to know just if they're looking at Twitter? Because remember, these dots are different accounts on Twitter. Okay, so the next thing you're going to do is you're going to read the article and then answer those questions. And then when you're finished, you'll be ready to turn it in.